Hello, everybody. Thank you for returning to our YouTube channel. I am Brian with Technology United for Ukraine. And as you know, we are partnered with the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian Armed Forces, through a unit called the Birds of Fury. They are a Ukrainian military R&D group, research and development, that works alongside us to bring innovative technologies to Ukrainian Armed Forces. If you'd like to join us, we're an all-volunteer group. Link is in the description. Always looking for scientists, engineers, technologists, or anybody who wants to help out with our social media fundraising. So please click the link in the description. All right, let's get right into this. Russia's war-driven economy on the brink of stagnation. And what does that mean? Well, Russia's gross domestic product grew by 3.5% in 2023. And their unemployment was only 2.3. These figures, though impressive at first glance, are misleading, notes the Business Insider Polska. Because what they are looking at outside of kind of these polished up numbers is the fact that it's the military industrial complex that grew, right? So they experienced a 10% growth, while the rest of, and that was since 2021, by the way, while the rest of the industrial complex only grew, and this is more the civilian side outside of the defense industry, only grew by 3% since 2021. That is really bad. And we're going to get into how they did that. How did they grow the defense industry? And now it's obviously common sense. They're having a war, they're producing, but there's a way they did that. And the way they did it was by forcing banks to give, this is the Russians, to give the defense industry loans. And the defense industry had to take these loans. And they had to increase their manufacturing, their staff. They had to increase production. Problem is, along with this debt comes interest. So the interest has really been eating into the defense industry's profits, right? Because remember, they have other burdens. They got to pay their employees, keep the lights on, and all the other things that go with running a business. Now, on top of it, they have this debt, which is at, right now, the off budget, they call it financing, hit $415 billion. Okay, with an estimated 200 to 250 billion as compulsory loans to the defense contractors. That is incredible. That is just mind-boggling. The amount of money they're forcing into an industry that may not be making money out of those loans. So what will happen in the future? They believe there will be a vast amount of bankruptcies at the tail end of all of this. Now, let me get into the numbers of how many Russian soldiers were lost and how many tanks and all the other stuff. What were the losses like? All right, so here, the losses of Russian occupiers in Ukraine. The amount of those soldiers that expired from the battlefield has now hit 818,740, with 1,580 being added. Tanks has hit 9,811, with 8 being added. Armored fighting vehicles, 20,412, with 18 being added. And you can call these armored personnel carriers, and there's all different interpretations of that, of these losses, but that is the number. Artillery systems, 22,055, with 15 being added. Another number that's really been on the rise, and this is actually low, it's vehicles and fuel tanks, with 76. We've seen this for many days, over 100. And remember, that is damaging the ability of the Russian troops to get fuel for these vehicles over here. And as we know, there is becoming more and more shortage of fuel because the Ukrainians are hitting their fuel depots heavily, their refining plants, and they're just hitting it massively with UAVs. And now with the sanctions in place, which we'll get into, right now, is also putting a real hurt on their industry. And we will see that right here. The U.S. Treasury, so they got together with our allies and said, all right, we really need to put real sanctions on the oil production in Russia. And now the U.S. has basically said, if you get caught doing business with oil from Russia, we're going to just basically put a huge sanction on the bank that does it in your country. And these ships delivering the oil are called the shadow fleet. The shadow fleet. That is what they are called, and they've been going around. Nobody was supposed to be buying oil, but the sanctions really weren't enforced that heavily. And by the way, there's 180 of these vessels around the world. But they just, now it's being really enforced. The Biden administration has, unfortunately, a little too late, has really come down on the banks who are doing the money trading, right? So if you're a bank and you do a trading for the oil, you're going to get sanctioned. And we'll see evidence of that right here. This is China. So a Russian oil ship originated out of this port here, came all the way over to the Chinese port. They're out here. They're all docked out here and over here. There's 3 of them. And they cannot drop the oil off because the banks in China are saying, we don't want to handle that. We're not going to touch that. We don't want these sanctions. So they're pretty serious. And, to see China go to their knees just tells you how powerful we can be if we all come together. Think of that. If we all come together, China's not the threat that they're made out to be, nor is Russia, but we would just have to be tougher. Just like these Ukrainians who are fighting on these front lines, we have to be the same way in the rear. But unfortunately, I don't make those big decisions. Some other people do in governments. All right, so how is Russia and China kind of countering these sanctions and the pressures they're putting on Russia? As we've heard, Russian oil ships and Russian and Chinese ships are dropping anchors and dragging them across the Baltic Sea and ripping up these telecom lines, which, cripples Europe. And we really need to focus on this, think about this and this type of threat. We've always kind of made the assumption in the past, that Russia would never, do anything against us. China would never. Well, I think we need to rethink that. And this is probably a little bit of a test, these sabotages to see how quickly they could weaken NATO. So, we might have to look at other measures to ensure communications stay up and going, not just one avenue of it. Something for us to think about, and perhaps war game. Now let's get here into this oil depot that got hit. Now I cannot say this name of this place, Voronezh region in Russia. These Ukrainian drones had come and hit this oil refinery. And as you can see, this is off in the distance. We'll go ahead a little bit. This is a little closer. Massive. And these things burn for days and days and days on end. Here's another perspective. You guys listen to this Russian rap music while watching this oil refinery burn. So think of what's happening all across the whole spectrum of the Russian economy and front lines, how oil is being hit, right? So we're hitting the fuel trucks, right? That's very grassroots organic, right? Like they're hitting these individual fuel trucks, right? We saw the numbers were really high. Then we're hitting the refineries. And then you're getting pressure from the international community. And you cannot sell your oil. So this is really going to strangle the Russian effort tremendously. And we may see, lots of bankruptcies come out of this with the way Russia has conducted their policies with banking and forcing loans on these defense contractors. They will hit bankruptcy. We're going to see oil industries in Russia possibly go bankrupt. It's going to be interesting the next 6 months to 12 months. All right, now let's get down here into Pokrovsk. As you know, I always give an update. So right here is the city of Pokrovsk. Let me circle it. The Russians have been, just putting heavy pressure on this here. This has been their heavy focus. And they've been moving out this way. And I think I know where they're going. They want to cut off this road here. And if we look right here in this area here, where are they going here, right? They are going right to this area here. They want to cut this. There's an intersection right here. If we blow this up, we will see an intersection. And they have obviously a broader strategy. They're trying to do like a pincer move. This is it. Here's the intersection. Let me get rid of these lines I drew, circles. This is the intersection right here. So they want to come out here, cut this off. Now let's look at the big picture of what they're doing. Okay, let's look at their big picture. Get me up. All right. So let's go out. Come on. All right. If they move in this direction here and they cut off, let me just kind of hone in on this a little bit more. This thing is not working for me today. All right, there we go. Apologize. All right, there we go. It's being difficult. If they move this way, and now my thing gets all fat. Look at that. And then they go this way, cut this off. They can then meet up here and encircle this whole area, cut off all supplies. Because taking a city usually costs a lot of manpower and vehicles, tanks. It's just going to be tremendous losses will be incurred. But the Ukrainians have put up one hell of a fight in this area. Losses for the Russians have been just through the roof. They've been astronomical. All right, so everyone, remember, like, share, subscribe, and join us. And Slava Ukraini, my friends, let's keep the fight going.